Hi, you all right?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm all right, you okay?
I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah, nice to meet you. You're all right, I'm just doing an interview.
Oh, no worries. I've listened to the album already because I do music reviews and
Oh,
I
yeah?
really loved it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Title track as well.
Thank you.
Do you mark your reviews out of 5 or 10?
I do.
What did you give the album?
10.
Boom. Boom.
Nice to meet you.
She gave it a strong 7.
Give it a strong 7.
Just give it a 10 just
strong,
now.
yeah, she
You
gave
just
it a 10.
rounded it up now.
It was definitely not a 10.
There we are, the new Doctor Who and his middle-aged millennial sidekick, hanging around Manchester at Matty's request, talking about the new album being funny in a foreign language, but diving into all things 1975 because we've never done it like this and we've wanted to for a long time. So here we are in the north of England for the day, me and Matty Healy from the 1975.
Let's do it in Malibu, you said. Remember?
I wanted a bit of realism, mate.
I'm really glad.
It wouldn't be Manchester if
I'm really glad.
wasn't pissing it down.
It's really good to be back, actually.
It's Manchester.
It's Manchester.
It's where it happens. It's where the good shit comes from, man.
But the question is, if what is never happened, or what will be, ever
If isn't could
fuck
not.
off. Fuck off. Wow, it's my first time here, you know.
The revelation of.
This is a fun room. This is a fun room
I
with
was
the
saying
bleachers
it's
at the
tiny.
back.
But that was like,
Wow.
I saw that as a seated venue.
Oh, you can't lose here.
It was an amazing place.
It's the smell that I always remember when I walk in these places.
Did you ever go back to your first primary school?
Oh my God, I've driven past it so many times and never had the courage.
No, for some reason, I went into my old primary school not long ago, and yeah, there's that smell, but it's the scale of it. It's like there's this relative scale where it feels like this is a set of the Deaf Institute, because it felt massive when I played here, and now it feels, like a faux remake of it.
Yeah, it's almost like if you can imagine what your first gig should feel like, it is this place, which is why it's so sick. And you realize why so many people who visit Manchester, I heard the story that Wet Leg chose to play here even though they could have scaled up to 3X recently because they wanted the experience of playing here.
So funny that with the kind of legacy, because the Deaf Institute for us became quite late. Like the Deaf Institute there was the Dry Barn, there was a Ruby Lounge, and there was Jabez Clegg, there was the Beer Keller, there was Academy 3 if you could get there. Deaf Institute was quite new and cool by the time that we got to play it. The reason that Deaf Institute had such a big part in our story was it was the first Manchester 1975 gig where we went from being a band's band to people knowing songs.
So from leg up to standing on your own feet is what you're saying.
It was sound control and then it was here. And that was a real thing where like the idea that a first album was gonna happen. You'd started playing the record, basically.
Yeah.
Not to like big you up, but the truth is we couldn't get arrested. We were trying to go down that route that everybody was trying to go down in the late 2000s of getting a major record deal. That's what you did. And we couldn't. And then we were like, right, let's start our own label, which we did over a bowl of pasta with like however much money we had, which was nothing.
Yeah.
But then you started smashing The City, which became this kind of cult like hit.
I think I might have played it twice in a row the first time I played it, maybe.
I remember the first time it happened because I remember texting Jamie because obviously everything that we'd done up until that point, we had tried so hard.
Yeah.
We'd been trying, man, we tried to get these people interested. And I was driving, and I was with I remember I was with a girl. So I would have been, what was I, 23 or something? I was driving around in my Clio, and it just came on. You opened the show with it, and it was that Zane Lowe excitement. Right. Oh, beams of sunshine coming off this one, or whatever you were saying. It was that Zane Lowe thing. And I literally pulled the car over. I was like, this is my band. This is me. This is me. That's me. And she was like, and then I text Jamie and he
What
was
a
like,
scene.
no, are you sure? And I was like, mate, I just listened to it.
Yeah.
And that was the start of it, really.
It just, from my perspective, while we're reflecting, it just, I remember the first time it was Alex who played me your music. And I remember listening to it and going, it just sounds so ready. And so that work you talk about that you've done, trying so hard, putting in all of that energy into something that you felt wasn't being reciprocated, you were reciprocating it yourself. Because by the time that song was done, no one that was new sounded that ready and on purpose.
Well, that's where the suspicious came. The irony and the suspicion came in.
the industry
because,
plant.
Yeah, the industry plant thing, because we were just better. It wasn't subversive to be a band from Manchester that sounded like a band from Manchester, because this is the weird relationship we had with Manchester now. Now we're super embraced. I mean, it's
I'm glad
beautiful.
you're going here, because you're not an obvious northern band to anyone who's not from the north of England.
This is the thing. But now you go on the street, like today is madness. Like so many people coming over. And I love it in Manchester because people are there is this kind of Manchester pride thing. But at the beginning, you had the Buzzcocks, you had the Smiths, you had the Stone Roses, you had Happy Mondays, you had Oasis, you had Doves, you had whatever. The reason that those bands were massive is because they didn't sound like anyone else. And they changed stuff. That's why they were celebrated.
And became a Manchester sound after that.
So after the Oasis, the Manchester sound had been so established that people walking around dressing like Ian Brown in a parka were looking for the next obviously recognisable thing. And I was a bit like, well, nah, we're the next Manchester band because we're as new as the Smiths were.
People talk about following in the footsteps of giants or standing on the shoulder of them while we're talking about Oasis. But and I think where there's a confusion there is people feel like be influenced by that and embellish it ever so slightly. No, what it means is like stand in their footsteps for a minute and then take footsteps of your own on that path to greatness.
Don't copy them.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Don't copy other bands. Because it's been done better. Like, do you know what I mean? Like all that confusion when we headlined Reading, when I said, who's Rage Against the Machine? It was such a dumb way of phrasing it. I didn't mean it. I phrased it wrong. What I meant was, listen, I've had this conversation with you. I use Rage as an example of a band that I'm going to bring into context what we're talking about.
All right.
You can't really do rap rock credibly after Rage Against the Machine because they did it, they invented it, and they ended it. Bands like Slowdive, great, but My Bloody Valentine kind of started and ended something.
So what you're saying is originality was always an essential part of the chemistry of this band. You wanted to be original.
Nothing changes culture that isn't new. Nothing. Young people are always at the forefront of cultural change. That's always the idea. But that's always because the economy has supported that. There's always been environments for that to happen. Whereas now, young people, if they want to make art, a lot of them tend to have to make like quite homogenous art, whether it be like the flat design for the internet startup or the this or the that. It's like there's not many generative, alternative scenes left because...
Go on, because...
Well, there's like 4 websites now. Like the internet used to be this like huge utopian mental free source thing. Now it's 4 websites. If I wasn't encouraged by my surroundings, these places, if I wasn't like in a scene, I'm not calling myself a genius. I am not calling myself a genius, but I'm saying...
You can't, you're not allowed.
Exactly. But genius is required for anybody to rise to the top.
So when you live in a country like the United Kingdom at this point, you've never left, you've never relocated permanently, you've always come home. And I lived here for a long time, and again, we reminisced and reflected a little bit on when I felt that the arts could flourish and thrive. That's what we're talking about with regards to bands and art and artists everywhere. Where you went, every town, every city, there were people playing all the time. Venues are closing down. People can't afford to do art wholesale. They have to find ways to compromise their art to survive. You live in the UK. This is the reality. It's the reality all over the world. And then you see the government coming in, and especially during quarantine, the news travelled far and wide, cutting out the funds for the arts, cutting down the opportunities for the arts.
It's because they're Philistines. It's literally because they are Philistines. I'm not being terse on purpose. I'm saying that if you are the Minister of Culture, you should be able to fuck. And you should know who Aphex Twin is. Because some people are a person and then they hear Blue by Joni Mitchell, or they hear Bob Dylan, they hear whatever record it is, and they immediately become someone else.
Your identity is
They are
emphasized by the art.
transformed.
Yes.
If you've never felt the transformative power of music or art,
You're stuck
then,
in one place.
then you're not going to give it the reverence that it deserves. These people can't fuck. They don't know. They've got no source. They don't get it. Well, Billy Connolly said, your desire to be a politician should disqualify you from being able to be one. You know? I probably didn't deliver it in the way that he did.
Well, you got to laugh in the cheap seats.
I laugh in the cheap seats, but that's true. If you want to be a politician, you shouldn't be allowed. You should be forced to do it.
It's so true. You should be forced to do it. It's so true.
You should be really cool. You should find someone really, really cool, and then be like, listen, we're giving you shitload of money.
You're showing real promise here. We need you to go and salvage something.
Yeah, would you like, you're sick, go and sort that out.
I've always had the feeling, and I'd love you to talk about this, not something as obvious as a written plan or a synopsis of what was important or not important, but in your head, I feel like you map it out more than others. I just do.
Well, I'm a fan first, so like I was obsessed with the culture for a start.
Yeah.
But also,
Yeah.
you can think about it like there being a plan, but it's considered in the way that a lot of people when they're older, they try and journal and they do it for a little bit and they can't.
Yeah.
Most people that journal as an adult have been doing it since they were about 12 or 13. They don't really know why they do it. It's ceremonial. It's part of their day. If they don't do it, they feel weird, right? That's the 1975 for me. So with journaling, elicits a certain amount of self-analysis. Where am I going? What have I been doing? Where do I stand in the world? Now, I've been in the 1975 since I was 13. So 12 isn't a person. So all of my self-analysis has been under the umbrella of what is the 1975? Who is the 1975? So of course, I've projected and placed us in places in my, or I've been reflective, or I've thought, yeah, well, this is what it's going to be. But it's because this is who I am. That's why it was hard when we got if you've been in a band for 2 years and you start at college and a major label comes along and says you're not good enough, it's like, oh, the band isn't good enough. If you start a band at 13
and it's your journals,
and you're 20,
you're not interesting enough.
You're not good enough.
You're not interesting. What you write about yourself and the world that you see is not to our taste.
And brutal. Exactly. And I was like, oh. And this is the thing as well.
Brutal. And by the way, then you go one of two ways. History will tell you either go, all right, lads, I'm going to university. I'm doing something else in my life. Or you go, I like how this feels. There's some real fuck you here.
Well, Manchester felt safe because what I managed to do was convince Han and Ross's parents to let them go to Manchester and Salford Uni.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Well...
No, this is good.
Tell
the story as it is.
Okay, I was very much like, trust me. Right, because this is the way you've got to think about it. Right, this is the way, because you know what I'm like. I know I can be like lofty and a bit like pretentious,
no, this is beautiful.
But you know that I'm actually like quite a solid, down-to-earth guy.
And not just that, you see it through, bro.
Right, I'm not actually like I don't actually think I'm in.
Yeah.
But so what I have to do, right, is separate the words visionary and the word genius. Always get put next to each other, and they're super complementary words, right?
Right.
So I'm not gonna even consider. Let's take the word genius and throw it away. That's not something I would ever regard myself as or want to. But let's just look.
Well, you're not allowed to. Other people get
exactly. Yeah. Let's just look at the word visionary and remove the complementary element of it and think of it as an objective thing.
Yep.
So there's certain people...
You saw it.
It's just the way, some people are maths people.
Yeah.
Some people like see stuff. So it's not like I think about that much of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
All I'm really trying to do is just get out what I can see. So I'm not a visionary, but it's me catching up with whatever I'm seeing in my head. You know what I mean? Very much a daydreamer. And I think that I was saying to them, like, listen, I've got this thing in my head, and I know that this suit doesn't agree with it, and I know that this person doesn't agree with it, but trust me, I'm younger than them, and culture's turning. I was very into this idea of like...
This isn't a living room with two parents. This is like an actual hangout.
No, well,
I'm going to explain the situation
This is over a period of time as well, because like we you know, by the time we got to 18...
I'm only being granular because this should be a scene in the film one day. This is actual quite a pivotal moment in the story of the band.
It is because we'd been doing it since we were 13 and we'd been like dedicated to it since we were 13. By the time we got to like 19 and we were still like just like delivering Chinese and stuff like that, some parents were a bit like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I was like, let's convince everyone that we should stay here so we can keep doing our thing. And we did. And we kept kind of just like playing and doing shows, and it wasn't really going anywhere. Jamie, our manager, was putting us on tours with bands, and we were getting like a little bit of a following.
Like who'd you tour with? Who
toured with Little Comets.
Yeah, I remember.
Toured with Little Comets. We toured with One Night Only.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right?
Wow. Was it like yesterday when you played here? Does it feel like that? I know it's a weird question.
You got to remember, this is like, it's like you've got the early 2000s, you've got the iPhone, you've got the front camera on the iPhone coming out.
Yeah.
So stuff like the synthesis of technology and social media and Tumblr and the emergence of all these things. So up there on that balcony, somebody had obviously got what is the new iPhone.
Right.
Horizontal, filmed the whole set, put it on YouTube.
Right.
Now, that had never happened to me.
And it's up there still?
It's still up there.
Amazing.
We were just referencing it as a shot, and it's come, there we are, that's the shot. And
Crazy.
it was just me playing here like that, and I'm here, Han's here, Ross is there, and George is here. And somebody played the whole set, and it still exists.
Did you notice the camera at the time when you were on stage? Do you remember?
No, this room was like electric that night. Like it was a real thing as well, because also we were playing stuff off our forthcoming album that like wasn't out, and like that was like a real. And like I said, YouTube is quite a new phenomena in the way that people were discovering stuff. So we really came through and were part of all of those big fluxes that happened culturally across the generation.
It was transformative. New things were meeting hands and being used. Technology and art were truly combining. And it was a transformative era. And I think about timing a lot. And I wonder if you do. And I wonder if someone who ultimately grew up well, you're a hacienda baby. You were born at the end of the 80s. So you were born into Manchester.
Real Manchester.
When all that crazy culture and amazing shit, the experience of art was going on, and no one could film it. Most of it is not captured.
Exactly.
And then obviously you lived through the 90s as a kid.
And I was a witness to Britpop and a witness to all
and
this
tabloid
kind of
culture in a house where tabloid culture affected the dynamic of your family.
Yeah, massively.
Let's talk about that for a second, because your relationship with attention is, I've always felt, it's a bit love-hate. It's a little bit like, I love it, but I hate it. I love it, but I hate it. It swings on a dime.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether some of that traces back to this kind of, I mean, the tabloid culture in the 90s, for kids who are too young to know, and most of you watching this will be, was biblical.
Yeah, beyond what you would see nowadays.
Biblical. It's industry now. Back then, it was just straight fucking street terror. It seemed to me what was fascinating was that on paper, you had all the ingredients. You came from a family that was already known by the tabloids, yet you were doing something different. You know, you can read the headline right now. It's like, Denise Welch's son, bad boy, pop star, rock star, off rails, blah, blah, yada, yada. It's just perfect, because it brings your family back into the swirl that they're out of. They made it out. Now they're back in. You brought them back in.
I think the truth is, though, is that quality over anything always, the truth kind of always out. So the fact of is that the 1975, how good we were, how definitive we were becoming in a culture at that time was so much bigger than than those ideas.
Yeah.
That the 1975 took off way before they could be like, he's whose son or what? It was a completely different thing.
No, it was almost like a like gotcha. It was almost like this king of credibility as far as their fans are concerned comes from this other background, and everyone was like, well, we're a new generation. We don't understand this painting that you're trying to present to us.
Yeah, exactly. And also, to be honest with you, if you can draw me a clean line from how your mum knowing Curly Watts to having a #1 album in America, like, I don't really know how that works.
But it's tabloid culture. They're not looking for a clean line. They're looking
No, for sure.
A ragged line.
But this is the thing, and then you know what happens now is like there's this whole. I made a joke that I drew the short straw at the nepotism baby nursery. Because there's so many like famous kids out there. The nepotism baby concept is interesting though, isn't it? Because it seems to be something that people talk about when they're a little bit jealous socially of what it is.
It's fine.
No,
no
it's
one
not.
cares anymore.
No, what I'm saying is, right, I grew up...
Kardashians changed everything.
Well, I'm not getting into that. Love everyone. People grow up in cultures, right? I grew up around artists. So when I was a kid, I was like, right, what does he do for a job? Right, he makes art. What does he do? He's an actor, right? Okay. You just subconsciously take it in. If you grow up in a family of doctors, there's not many nepotism doctors.
Right. What that we know about.
Dads. A lot of the time, if your dad's a doctor, you're a doctor because you grow up in the culture of a doctor.
I'm with you.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, that happens across the board. It's not just, so I grew up in art.
Right.
So I made art. It's not like that complicated. What I became a witness to when I was a young person, what you were talking about in the kind of in the brutal landscape of the tabloid media, was people maintaining personas, mediating this, mediating that, negotiating with this person, negotiating with that person. Yeah. By the time I got famous, I was already bored, mate. Like my mum had like won celebrity Big Brother. I'd seen fame in every single form. So what started happening was I started getting interviewed, and then I started getting known for my interviews. But the only reason for that was because I thought, you know what? If I'm gonna do this now, I'm just gonna have to make it conversations and not lie. Except that I'm going to say things that I'll want to apologise for, make mistakes in public.
Live in the moment.
Just be real.
Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in your own head.
I'll go mental.
You'll go crazy.
Because if I tried to maintain, I don't even know who I am. Yeah. So if I tried to construct a version of who I am and then maintain that.
Yeah. Every question's a nightmare.
Every question's a nightmare. I would be terrified.
Look, I'm surprised. You know, one of the last times I spoke to you, when quarantine kicked off, you were like, I'm not going to do this again. And you didn't draw a distinction between me and you, or you and a few other people that you will talk to. You were like, I'm not going to do this again. And then you were like, I'm going to go do Drive Like I Do. And I just felt like you were searching almost for a reset.
Yeah, I was. Or I was searching to solidify what this feeling of resetting was that was happening to me by proxy because of what had happened. Now, the thing is with COVID, it didn't have, as much as it had an effect on me in the way that it had an effect on everybody, we've put out an album just by nature and the way that it's flowed every 2 years. And we put out a record in 2020. And we're putting out a record in 2022. Going into the studio during the pandemic, there was no better place to go. So I wasn't artistically that interested in the pandemic, but I also wasn't, it didn't define a lot of stuff apart from the fact that we weren't on tour whilst we were making stuff. I think that what I was looking for, which I looked for ages, was basically every record that we'd made up until Being Funny had its moments of strife and difficulty, but it was obvious what it was. So as soon as we made the first record, let's say, this vision thing again, What I Like It When You Sleep was, although it was difficult to grasp at, it was kind of obvious. Brief Inquiry, it was obvious where we were going to go. Even though Notes was mad, we knew where we were going.
There was a breadcrumb trail that you could see.
Yeah, that's right. After Notes, it just kind of really opened up, and we were lost. and basically every time we've made music, the only thing we've been doing is been loving it, being excited, or being like really turned on by it. And there was a point where I think me and George admit that we'd kind of just been making like notes part 2.
But we're going to pause here because I actually want to dive into this in detail.
Okay.
At night and day.
Okay.
So I want to get out to Manchester.
Okay.
I want to get a little more time
Let's do
out
it.
there.
Let's go for a walk around
Yeah.
Manchester. Barca, which is still here, this bar, and then Duke's next door. That was like a real scene in like 2000, well, maybe 98, 99, you know, you had, what was like Sweet Female Attitude, Wookie and Lane, like all this kind of like, and then all the pop garage stuff. And I would go to these kind of like, or I would meander from there down to here and find these like daytime raves with like Sunship playing. And like, I don't want to
No, but you're a
over
kid.
glamorize
That's
it.
okay. You're a kid. I'm trying to figure out the timeline. You are literally a kid, and so your eyes are like your aperture is opening in real time.
Well, I was always so obsessed with like music, and the thing is with like dance music that used to excite me was it was almost like it would excite me in the way that like TV post Watershed would excite me.
Right.
Because in the UK, the radio after 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock goes to dance music.
Yeah.
It goes to this kind of music. So it felt like adult music, right? And then I would be young and I'd be in the back of someone's car, you know, a teenager's car, and they're listening to some kind of like hard like garage kind of thing. I was always very excited by electronic music as I was growing up in the 90s. So then when I moved here and I lived over there, this was actually a proper scene, which I didn't really reflect on, until I was a little bit older, but I would be in these, you know, as a kid, I'd be like giving it in these daytime raves just around here, and I kind of, to me, it's it's like really beautiful. I know it's not, but this is the thing.
I think it is.
I saw you talking to Billie Eilish about The Neighborhood, right? And that show that she was talking about, we opened for, and I used to talk to The Neighborhood a lot. And we both were doing this like miserableism, black and white thing at the same time, right? And it was funny because like,
Maybe there's such different bands. Because
but think about it.
Go.
What I'm saying is,
Same page.
musically, we went like optimistic. We need to get out of this.
And they went exactly. I was about
And
to say.
they went.
This is we're from the valley. It's sunny all the time.
It's like getting beaten over the head with a rainbow.
They created a banal, suburban, morose environment from what is considered glamour.
Exactly.
And you painted the prettiest, sunniest picture from inside all of this industry.
That's what I was trying to do. And I'm not trying to claim Manchester too much, because also like where we're from in Cheshire, the countryside, like where I eventually moved to, is a big part of the 1975. That's where you move in to drive like I do, and the kind of birth of that.
Right.
But this was when because I was
emo punk from Pretty Places.
Right.
Emo punk from Pretty Places.
Emo punk from Pretty Places, but there's a lot of country on the new record, and I always reference that funny meme where it's like, emo is, I'm gonna live and die in this town, sad face, and country is, I'm gonna live and die in this town, happy face. You know?
Totally.
And I think that I'm gonna live and die in this town, happy face, I relate to both.
Well, I was gonna ask you this, and this is a nice place to sort of get to on this part of our Manchester trip. Home. The idea of home. Now, I've tried to get inside that conversation with artists my whole life, because I think when you travel and when you search for inspiration, the idea of what is home is distorted and twisted for a big part of your life. But you brought us back to a place at a point in your life, going into your mid-30s, the band is perpetual, art is now your life, and you've decided to come back here. Was this a reflective decision to come back here? What part of your journey did you want to trace to and bring us here to tell us about, really?
It's my favorite place to write. And what I mean by write is walk around and essentially write lyrics. With that now, there comes an element of nostalgia. I think it's the purity that I'm trying to hold on to because we started this at like 13 and there's something like magical about it that none of us can really bottle or contain or commodify. And I think that as you get bigger, you get presented opportunities to like do that. I mean, the analogy is probably best to like the camera. Like if we're at a party, like if we're at a bar and I'm talking to you and we're talking like this, but every couple of seconds I'm kind of just like, I'm listening to you, but I'm looking over here, I'm looking over here. Eventually you're just gonna be like, go over there, right? You're gonna be like, go over there because I'll go and find another favorite band.
Yeah, disinterest has a time.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, so,
it's
and
an
if over
hourglass.
there is like money or getting bigger or like, you know, if you're ever doing anything creative for money, it's not the right thing. And I think that this place, not this place reminds me that like, I'm not like, you know, I'm not like from a council estate in Salford, but like walking around Manchester has been like
Formative
for me. And I think that
That's huge.
it still really resonates with me. And
think
because
I think
we've had an interesting relationship with Manchester and we've become, later in our career, we've become more of a Manchester band.
I mean, there is just something about the canal system. I remember when I first moved to the UK, I'd never seen anything like this, you know, a canal system. And the boats were almost like, is that like a theme park ride? Like you actually like, do people live on those? Like, yeah,
right.
dude, that's industry.
It's industry. I need to avoid this mud.
Well, I'm the one in
It's
white
getting a bit
shoes.
singing in the rain.
I'm the one. Where did the country thing come from, by the way?
The country thing comes from being from the north of England because I really resonate with, I've spent a lot of time in America and the south of America is very similar in ways to the north of England.
Right.
It's underfunded, it has its own folk music, it has its own language, it has its own kind of political beliefs, do you know what I mean? And I grew up in the northeast and then moved to the northwest. Now the northeast has a lot of folk music. And what the north of England has is a lot of politics, it has a lot of history, it has a lineage of all those kind of things. And I think that country music comes from the same thing.
So you're creating a direct connection between someone who's writing country music and a Richard Thompson. You think that that's almost England's country.
Yeah. If you take out like the obvious black influences that are in 75's music, it's country music. Look at like, especially songs like Be My Mistake, but even like It's Not Living If It's Not With You.
Yeah.
Sure, we do it like kind of psychedelic, furzy, like post-punk, but if I play that on the acoustic guitar, that's a country song, you know?
You're
and
so
like,
weird, I love it. You're so weird, because it's so true, like if you really dive into this stuff and get inside the granular nature of your influences, you flip so quickly from Paul Simon, from Graceland to Mirror Moves.
Yeah.
From Mirror Moves over to like you say, something that's like very folk driven, almost a Nick Drakey thing.
But it's music. It's like, it's the genre is kind of is almost like, is so surface to me because it's 8 notes. Like it's 8 notes. It's like, and you can do whatever you want with them, but at the end of the day, it's like shiny stuff. Like if it's a beautiful melody, I like it. I don't care if it comes from the right hand of Miles Davis or the left tweeter of Aphex Twin, or it doesn't matter. It's music, and like, I understand like, I'm not particularly interested in like cultural sensitivity. I'm interested in authenticity. So there's certain things that I wouldn't do just because it wouldn't be authentic. As much as I make the joke that the guys would hate the idea that there's not much separation between them and us, but there isn't, because if you start a band at 17, 18, you've got a leather jacket, you've got a bird that you like, you've got a favorite record, you've got a cultural identity. If you start at 13, you don't have that. So because every film or band or political or social event that's happened has happened to the 4 of us at the same time in the same room, it's kind of meant that we've become not necessarily codependent, but just like symbiotic. You know, we're very much four parts of one thing. That's why we still we hang out. Like we don't, it's not fake, do you know what I mean? Like we're best mates. We don't get together to do the 1975.
Did you ever feel that forces were conspiring, whether they meant to or not, to separate you? And let me qualify that in the sense that when you started to actually make some noise, and in particular focusing on America, because here I think is a place where bands, there's a real desire to break out as a group. That gang mentality, right? I mean, we're about to go to a building where the Mondays rehearse, Joy Division rehearse, you rehearsed, right? But in America, in particular, when something becomes successful, it becomes a brand.
Yeah.
And people are looking for the most easy to market situation.
Yeah.
And that's you.
Yeah. Okay.
Did that ever happen? Did that feel like you were being pulled in any direction at any given point, even just by the circumstances rather than by, any clandestine force?
No, because it feeds into that thing that we were talking about before, where you said that for some reason it feels like whatever I'm doing has its own direction that is going a certain direction.
Right.
So, for example, what that also meant is that I kind of understood what a frontman was.
Right.
I understood that the difference between a democracy and an autocracy. Not that an autocracy is a bad thing, but I don't want Dire Straits. I don't want Pink Floyd. Honestly, I want U2.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's this sharing thing. And also the truth of it is you just want the Lost Boys in Peter Pan. It's only in 80s movies where people go they're 4 13-year-olds spit in their hands, they put it in the middle and they go, we're going to stay together forever. Do you know what I mean? It's this idealistic, ridiculous thing. When that starts becoming a reality, then you're kind of getting away with murder, and then you're just having fun. And I remember in one of our early interviews, 10 years ago, I said I think what we are doing is we're in the pursuit of excellence, which sounded really lofty. But what I really meant is we don't really have any other pursuits left. We've pursued getting big. We've pursued signing to a major. And the thing that actually worked was when we just didn't care. And we'd been together for 10 years and we now owned our own label.
Yeah, I just think you built a world for yourselves that no one could take away. I mean, whether you realize it or not, by necessity, because the major label didn't sign you, all right, let's begin by actually building our own fortress wall, right? Then what we put inside it, well, over time, that's up to you. No one can get inside your wall. I want to talk about this place, man, because look at this place, by the way. This is first of all, I'm just really glad it hasn't been knocked down.
Well, my friend has bought it, so it's not getting knocked down.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. That is
Stealth wealth much?
So Milesborough, yeah, I know, right? Milesborough House.
How important is that doorway?
Yeah,
man?
right? That doorway. I take a picture of that door every time I come back.
Yeah.
Every time I come back, I take a picture of it.
I gotta take a picture of it right now. I'm serious.
And it's so miserable. It's
But that's what's cool about it, is it has a sense of once you go in there, there's nothing else that matters.
Of course, and of course we all understand where that there's beauty in brutalism and we can understand architecture from that perspective, but there's a miserablism here. Well, it's that black door really is kind of such an important, I can't really put myself next to Joy Division or those kind of bands.
Did you rehearse there?
Before. We rehearsed there.
So did they. So there's a line there.
Okay, so they rehearsed there. At the time that we were rehearsing there, down there it was us, Everything, Delphic, and the Answering Machine. That was very much what was happening in Manchester at the time.
Amazing.
And it was all downstairs in here. Sean Ryder came numerous times and nicked the PA and sold it. I'd say that this is one of the most important buildings in kind of music history, because every band that's from Manchester has been in there.
By the way, in case anybody's worrying, I can see where this is going already. Everyone's gonna be could have shared your umbrella, Matty. What the fuck?
I'm trying my best.
He's trying, and I'm I got a hoodie. Don't worry about it.
I'm trying my best.
I'm trying to make sure I preserve your integrity here.
So right where this van is parked here.
Yeah.
This van. Yeah, parked out here. This is where I wrote the lyrics to The City. I was sat here in the van. We were playing dry bar. So we were playing dry bar, and I was parked here in the van that we bought from the Christian Swimming Club. And I wrote the city in this space, which is a loading only now, but it definitely wasn't because I've never been that subversive.
And so what else do you remember about that experience? Like,
I remember don't call it a spade if it isn't a spade.
Yeah.
And starting to, I remember that I wrote chocolate and then people started to listen. And then I was like, instead of just rhyming, I'm gonna have to do words as well.
Yeah. I mean,
Because chocolate is literally just me rhyming.
I know, but you're right. The city was witty.
The city was witty. Nice little wordplay. But that's the first time that I started thinking, maybe my currency is in telling the truth through like being a bit funny. I think that if you're constantly earnest, it's boring. You're the boy who cried wolf. Like the fact that, so when I'm earnest, people believe me because they're like, oh God, he's like said that.
So and this is a tough one, I know.
Tell me you love me because that's all I need to hear.
The most
without
earnest.
talking about my dick. Like that kind of thing, do you know what I mean? Now this is the
Without
most important.
ruining it.
This is the most important one for me. So this is Affleck's Palace. This is where this is a new thing. Again, this is very different. This used to be like a crazy bazaar, right, mate? Like a crazy bazaar. But, so you used to come in here. This used to be a t-shirt shop. But up on this wall was like, I've played MSG, you know what, this stuff I've done. This moment for me, walking around this corner was the moment because it was Stone Roses, it was Joy Division, it was all that. And one time when I was about 25, I came back to Affleck's Palace and I came around the corner and there it is.
Dude, it's good.
And that was the best moment.
It's a good positioning
it's the
too,
best
bro.
moment of my career. That was the best moment of my career.
What year was this? What had you done?
Well, this is 2013.
Wow.
So like, you know, that one there. But that was when I was like, okay, you've got Hacienda, you've got Smiths, you've got 75. I was like, that's what I'm happy with. The council are trying to shut down the night and day for a noise complaint.
Yeah, and it's been there for 30 plus years.
It's like moving to Leicester Square and then complaining about there being too many cinemas.
Yeah. It's been nice today, you know, for me to be back here. You know, I spent formative years of my life in the UK. I love the UK, you know. It's been really nice just to kind of see you walk the streets here and be appreciated. And it hasn't always been that way. You've taken your fair amount of shots.
Oh yeah, for real. But you know, the truth will always out. It's weird doing this with you, man. You know, like I came kind of after John Peel. Like you were the tastemaker for my generation. So to like be reflective and walk around and talk about me, like yeah, it's great, but it's all part of one thing. It's been nice for me as well. I mean, I came back quite a lot when I was writing, being funny, when I was finalizing lyrics. I spent a lot of time walking around. If you don't have a whole camera crew, you don't draw as much attention. Yeah. But still,
different time as well. I think everybody was pretty focused on the micro then. That was a real indication to me that things are getting back to whatever the new normal is. The fact that people aren't just looking straight ahead or in their own direction. They're actually willing to notice somebody else across the street. Oh, that's Matty Healy.
And then not thinking about the kind of
do I go and
weird
say hi?
social boundaries. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's been really nice to kind of see the whole human experience happen. But it makes total sense. And I think that the reflection of your lyrics, drawing people back towards you, it's all with purpose. You've written an album that is inclusive, and it's self-reflective in a very honest way. I feel like in a weird way, this is my observation of your words at this point in your life, is that before you've been writing inside the room, trying to reflect what it feels like to be one of that crowd. This album feels to me like you're actually, and you're still doing that, but you're looking more back at the crowd and seeing how it affects people in a different way.
If you look at like our show, like our last show, it's like like an Adam Curtis documentary. It's like words and I'm at the front and I'm telling you, and there's this 22 track record and it's a big like construct.
And every
like,
movement felt a little existential at times.
yeah, existential, but quite deliberate.
Yeah.
This record, we wanted to let people be a witness to something a bit more. So the last album was going to see Transformers at the IMAX. This is like going to see a play that maybe you'll be like, should I go to the bathroom right now? It's maybe a bit awkward.
Oh, it makes total sense now, because as
know?
soon as the piano comes in, which is obviously the LCD reference, the All My Friends reference, which is, I know, very knowing, and it's beautiful, and no one's going to ever hate on that sound. So it comes in, it almost does feel like the house lights have just gone down, and that's the first thing you get.
It is very much like that. It starts and it ends and it happens. And you can listen to it as one thing. I remember Hans saying, like, this isn't War on Peace. This is like our holiday photos. This is like a collection of Polaroids. It's like it's a captured moment of a time that isn't particularly interested in the past or the future. You know, people ask me quite often, what is it about the 1975, or why are the 1975 like still big, or why are they still relevant, or why people are asking? And it's like
Hard for you to qualify.
it's hard for me to qualify, but if you ask me that question, I think, well, if you just subtract us from band and put us next to Taylor, Lana, Kendrick, Frank, I'm pushing it a little bit, but like, you know, like let's say, put it in that, no one is asking questions about why they're still interested. Why
because you're a band?
Yeah, it's because we're just four dudes with guitars, and for nearly 100 years, no, since like, you know, 80 years, we've known what that is. We've known how long they last.
Yeah.
We've known that they come from a scene.
Yeah.
We know that the scene dies. We know that something else.
Yeah, but it's different with you. You are a band on paper, but the way that you create, the way that you change and shape shift and adapt to the times and reflect the times, you almost move as a four-person solo artist in that regard.
Well, because a band is completely, for us, it's...
Like, you're a weird band.
Yeah, but it's because it's arbitrary. The band thing is, we're a weird band. I'm not a weird artist.
No. I actually think you're a very honest, pretty transparent
I think
writer.
it's pretty kind of, I think it's quite postmodern and meta and all these things, but we're all smart enough to understand that. It's
Yeah.
But as a band, it's like, we're not like bands, because bands sound like things, and we just happen to be four dudes who play recognizable instruments.
But
And
at the core of it is friendship, man. I mean, the
Yeah.
reason bands break up is because the relationship gives way. There's a lot of things pushing and pulling at that, but the friendship, if it's strong, we'll always see it through. I really don't ever get a feeling that you guys have actually ever had your backs against the wall in terms of your friendship, ever. No. Now, that is rare. That
That's
has
very
to be
rare.
acknowledged.
Yeah, and that's not something I can
mean-
particularly comment on or take credit for. Like, we hang out. Like, we're best mates. It's like I said, it's not that...
So wait, are you saying you split everything fairly as a band?
We have done up until this album, and then the guys changed it.
Yeah.
So, and we're totally open to talk about everything. So it's always been known that me and George are predominantly the main songwriters, but we've essentially split all of the songwriting money equally.
Amazing.
Up until being funny, because it's not just about my ability to write songs, it's the environment that is nurtured for me to do that. So like, if there was ego or resentment or anything else going on, I wouldn't be able to do my job in the 1975.
I have to also qualify what you're saying, because anybody who's still stuck on that comment about I don't do things for money, which was in the New York Times recently, which is a great piece, by the way, Joe. But anyone who takes anything from that, you don't split your writing percentages evenly if you're bullshitting. Like, that is a serious line in the sand, and it has been before anybody questioned that.
And what happened was basically...
Rare, by the way.
Well, and then as an example of how mature our relationship has got, is that we never spoke about that. We never said why we were doing that. It's just what we were going to do. We'd slept on literally slept on each other's laps for 10 years. And what? I'm going to take more money than Ross?
Because it's working out.
Because I...
Yeah, whatever. It is what it is.
Who cares? Why would I do that? It's my boy.
Yeah.
You know, and also like, you know, like when there's four of you, and two people start saying, you go like, whatever, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if there was 4 of them and it was just me and Ross,
Yeah.
Ross would be ready regardless of
What
what's
was the
going on.
story at Glastonbury?
Some guy had
This is
started...
your first ever
It's
Glastonbury.
our first ever Glastonbury, and somebody was like throwing cans, and someone's drunk or whatever. But then this one guy started standing on cans and turning them into like ninja Death Stars, and he's throwing these things at my head.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Anyway, Ross catches him doing it. By the time I noticed, Ross had lobbed himself over the barrier and was now scrapping with this guy. Now, this isn't to say, we're lads from Manchester and we like a fight. We're not fight. We're not.
But
We're
you
soft lads
are
from.
you are a
We
little
are
bit.
a bit, but we're soft lads from Cheshire who love art. Really, is what we are. But the truth is that we bound together, and we like. It sounds silly, like we would die for. Like if someone like pulled a gun, it would be who gets in the way first. Do you know what I mean? We're not like, there's nothing... God, it almost makes me a bit sad. Like, there's nothing else like that in my life. Got a bit emotional then.
Oh, it's nice to recognize it.
I don't have... I don't have anything like else like that in my life.
Thank God you have that in your life. You know, I think about what you must have been going through in the moment when you were ultimately most distracted from your emotions and searching for anything else but the reality, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Really tough time for you. Mm-hmm. We've never spoken about it. I've always given you a wide berth on it. But we're talking about friendship and trust and people being there for each other. How important was their support in that time when you were going through your issue with drugs?
So the heroin thing was a problem because it was the first time where there had been any thing that one of us was doing or was into that the others weren't.
Could come between.
Yeah. So they weren't into that. They weren't attracted to that. For some reason, I was. And so it was the first time I had to like tell them something. So it was the first time that the idea of a secret existing even came out.
That's huge.
So it's almost as if like, okay, well, is there anything else that we've not known? Like that you, because that's a big thing.
Yeah,
for
there's
us to
diligence you have to do before you can focus on the issue. For sure.
I mean, listen, the story goes, the famous story goes, is that we were in Conway, we were trying to make a brief inquiry, and I basically, the guys kind of called me out one night at dinner, and they were like, listen, dude, like, you know that we know what's up. Like, we don't think you're in the right place to be making a record, and to be honest with you, it's kind of bumming us out, like, being in a studio with you, like, strung out, because this isn't what we do, you know? It's not you at your best and all this kind of thing. And I think I ended up saying something like, well, you know what? Fucking, it's hard to be me. If you want me, this is me.
This is how I cope.
Everyone's gonna have to deal with this shit. It never gets to like fuck you or anything like that.
Yeah,
but I was like,
yeah.
no, you need to, you need to respect my drug addiction. And I woke up the next morning almost like with an emotional hangover, and I was like, oh my God, not only was that the wrong thing to say, that was so cringe. Like, because I know that they will get over that, but that's going to be an anecdote that they'll take the piss out of me for years for. That's the first thing I need to think about. But the thing that I learned is that when you get to rehab, often you meet a selection of people who have lost everything.
Yeah.
And losing everything has elicited this desire to change their life. Now, when I got to rehab, I realized I'd not lost anything. I'd nearly lost the respect of everybody I loved, but I hadn't lost my career,
Hadn't lost your possessions.
hadn't lost my possessions,
Family.
hadn't lost my money. I was just walking a very, very thin line. I think that I was lucky enough
Yeah.
in my condition, in the way that I am as a person, to recognize that what needed to be done. And also, when I was doing heroin, I was really scared about people finding out about it. Not because of the moral outcry, because I didn't want to be a cliche. And you know why else? because I didn't want to do a sober record. I didn't want people to think, because basically, when I made A Brief Inquiry, I was like, okay, I can take ownership of this narrative. If people had found out, I wouldn't have been able to take ownership
Your
of it.
fear was, I can't shake this now. And by doing it the way you did it, and then facing it down the way you've done it, even today, having the courtesy to answer the question, even when you've been asked it before, it's kind of, it doesn't fall into that hole of, oh, he's just a fucking recovering drug guy who's trying to get back to his greatness. It's like, it was a temporary thing, move on.
Yeah, and also it's kind of like anything, I don't stay in many places for a long time.
Yeah.
And I go through lots of phases, and the junkie phase
Yeah.
was a kind of phase of mine.
Yeah.
I'm always going to have an issue with substances, but I do a lot of stuff that I would do in place of drugs that I now do that I prefer
Like what?
to jiu-jitsu,
Yep,
being in the gym.
yep.
Like, I know that sounds like quite arbitrary, but to be honest with you, like,
That's really common.
as the 1975 has gotten, let's say, bigger, the world has gotten smaller, and what you see really is the work of me, Jamie, Ed, Sam, me, Jamie Oborn, Ed, the band,
Yep.
Jamie Oborn, Ed Blow, Samuel Johnson, and Patricia Villa. How do I say your second name? I mean, Villarilio. Patricia Villarilio. I mean, you.
That was the most patient answer of the day. Did you hear that?
Yeah, the most patient answer.
You can actually hear her go,
Yeah, because she's my best friend of like 7 years.
exactly.
She's like my best friend of like
such
6
a
years.
mess, I love
I
it.
don't know her name. I just don't know what it is. It's
I
Patty.
mean, if it wasn't charming, right? You'd
But
want
Pat-
to just fucking...
but creative director is me and Patty. You've got Jamie and Ed, who
Yeah.
are the editors and the runners of everything. So it's like the team is so small, so I have so much to do. I have so much physically to do that also being able to do it without clinging on
Yeah.
feels really good.
Yeah.
Like being able, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when you get past 10 press-ups to 50,
Yeah.
the knowledge that you can do 50
Yeah.
is just a good feeling.
Yeah.
So like, I have the ability to do stuff a bit better now. Like, I think that everything I did was I'm 33, I'm not old, but like everything I did was completely in the bloom of pure youth. Do you know what I mean? The way I moved, the way I...
And you wore it and still wear it really well. But I think I can speak for everybody. Everybody. Everyone you just mentioned, all the fans, everybody, when I say that if you had ended up not going to rehab, and by the way, you talked about walking a fine line. It's pretty common knowledge that fine line goes more often than not down a fucking hill.
Yeah.
Somehow you didn't roll down a fucking hill. God, that would have sucked. Can you fucking imagine what would have happened?
Yeah.
If that promise had been fucking...
Yeah, I can imagine what would have happened.
That would have sucked.
It would have fucking
would've
sucked. Well, it would have
fucking
fucking sucked,
sucked.
man. And also, it's just such a waste, all that kind of shit as well, because also it's like, I actually much prefer me now at this age than I did before, because I think I was having a bit of an identity crisis, because I was like, I wanted to be a serious writer, but I was like 26.
Yeah, so
You can't be a serious anything.
You don't have the tools yet.
Yeah,
And by the
you-
way, that goes for everybody.
Yeah.
It gets better. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I'm old. That's okay.
I
It's
prefer
really
this-
good now.
and
I really like myself now. Like, for a lot of my
Totally.
20s and 30s, I fucking hated myself.
Yeah, you do, and that's what it's for. And you do 90 things wrong in your 20s, and you get 3 of them right, and you focus on those. And I think that...
Man, there's a lyric. Oh shit, there's a lyric.
What that was?
You say it outright. You say, I apologize for my 20s, I was figuring it out.
Yeah, what is it? I apologize I'm sorry about my 20s, I was learning the ropes. I had a tendency of thinking about it after I spoke.
Which
It's
is
very...
a great lyric,
It's
by the
very
way.
true.
I have a tendency of thinking about it after I spoke.
Exactly, but that's what you do, especially
Classic
if you...
Matthew Healy.
Well, if you put me, who's like trying to figure out who I am like, on a camera and be like, what do you think? It's like, what do I think?
Yeah, but what's awesome is you haven't changed. Like, most people get so sick of second guessing themselves in the wake of analysis that you either button up or disappear. You're sitting here and we're just like wide open. And that's what I love about it, is like you've committed. You're like, I can't write this unless I live it. There are some constants through your writing, and certainly in the sonic landscape of 75 albums, which is this yearning for affection.
Connection.
Connection, and all that comes with it. Hope, disappointment, love, heartache, boys, girls, love, lust,
Smoking.
drinking, posturing, the real thing.
Yeah.
It's all there, but this is the album for the first time that I heard you give into it in a pretty overt way. Like, you've always painted this picture about what relationships are, but you just like, I'm in love with you.
Yeah, 100%.
Tell me you love me. That's what I want. That's what I need to hear.
Took me a long
I'm only really safe when we're together.
God, when you say it like as kind of almost prosaic as that, maybe that's the thing that I've always tried to avoid. It comes slightly from me and me growing up. It comes from two things.
Doesn't it come from being in love?
It does come from being in love, but it comes from different experiences of being in love. And it also comes from Han and George being sat at the desk and me doing the typical 1975 thing where we have this beautiful sugar pop thing that we know is so glorious.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to go, I'm not in love with you. Or I'm trying to debase the sentiment to the point that Han cuts the thing and goes, dude, say it. Write a song about I love you. You've written enough songs about how you don't like this or this is what you discover. If you're impelled to write a song about this, be in the moment.
That's always the quiet ones, eh?
Right? And I think that this whole, I've been talking about sincerity is scary for a long time, and it's a lot easier to be ironic in the face and instead of being sincere. But the thing is, like, it's not even getting old. It's just growing up a little bit. This whole like nihilism and individualism that I was defined by, postmodernism that all of my previous albums have been defined by, individualism, drug addiction, nihilism, the search for all these kind of things.
The internet,
it's all very sexy and cool and transgressive and maybe appropriate at that time, but life will eventually make way for a less sexy set of circumstances. Family, ? Responsibility, ? Love, ? And these are the big things. Now, I've been scared of the big things, and I've never wanted to take them on, and certain people don't. David Byrne could write the best song in the world about this cup, and it would be amazing. But that's a small thing. He's not going to write a song about love. He'll manage to by accident. But I've always done small things. I've gone, okay, well, what?
You got there in the end, man. I mean, home's where I want to be. That's where you're at on this album now.
This is what I mean. It took him a while of only looking at the small to make so many small gestures that he painted this huge world.
Yeah.
And I think with this record, I was like, yeah, I could say, I've got a disease and you took a picture of your salad and put it on the internet. I could do that. Or I could say, just tell me you love me. That's all that I need to hear.
It's amazing. It was a revelation hearing you get to the point.
But that's that thing about, I'm talking about earnestness, is that if you're always earnest, then when you really do it, it doesn't really translate. Whereas the one thing that I know on this record is that I believe everything that I'm saying. Because it's hard, because that's the thing where I'll edit. I'll go back and be like, did I mean that? Or was I posturing? Or was I like making it up? Do you know what I mean?
I saw you on Jules the other night and you were like, nothing wrong with a little self-indulgence. And
I said that, did I?
Yeah, you did. It was great because you let the song go for another 32 bars of sax solo and you literally caught yourself and went, nothing wrong with a little self-indulgence. And it was brilliant because what it said was like, I'm fully aware that you at home, and especially all the kids out there, are just dying to move on, but I kind of want to let this just go.
Kind of just want to do my thing.
Yeah, man, and I just think for me it's really fascinating. But I want to finish by asking you this: What do you know about love at this point in your life to write those kind of songs?
You can't be wise and in love. That's what Bob Dylan said. You can't be wise and in love. It's a trade-off. After it, you can be wise for a bit until you're in love again. You can't be wise and in love. So trying to be both, which is what I always was, is Sisyphus. You know, it's completely Sisyphean. It's, for me, I've always wanted all loves at once. I've wanted the romantic love, I've wanted the phone call at the end of the night, I've wanted the text in the morning, I've wanted the connection with 10,000 people on the other side of the world, I've wanted the domestic life, I've wanted the love from fans, I've wanted all those loves at once. And because I always tried to take them at once, they were always in conflict with one another. So my malady that was going on in my relationship would mean that I'd be thinking about it when I'm stood in front of like 10,000 people, when I shouldn't be thinking about that. I should be thinking about that love. And what I'm trying to do is separate the loves and experience them as exclusively as possible. Because when you're 20 and you've got all this love and all these girlfriends and all these people that
Thrashy as fuck.
it's just thrashy as fuck, man. And I think that now, like, I think I'm starting to understand where the love is. And what I don't want to take for granted is that thing that we've spoken about. Why do people do that at shows? Grown people will go to a show and they know they can't touch you, but they do that. But it's because they're reaching for that one thing that, like, connects you and the artist. It's this transient, ephemeral thing that is what music is.
You're talking en masse, because that means something else as well. You know that means something else.
No, I'm talking...
No, I'm not talking about what you think. I mean, that is also applause, is it not?
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Yeah.
And it's...
No, it's applause. It's applause. If you're hearing impaired, it's applause.
Yeah. And I think that
But
also...
you see it en masse, it must mean something else.
Well, yeah, but it's people reaching for something, which is why I, like, hate paid meet and greets. Because it's like you've paid for the album, you've paid for the ticket, you've paid for the parking, you get them in the room and somebody's gone, how do we monetize that bit?
Not good. It's just not good.
How do we get this, you know, the touchy bit?
Yeah.
You know what the model should be?
What?
If you want to do you tell you what, if you want to do paid meet and greets, do them. I stand by you, but you take the money. If you're an artist and you do paid meet and greets, do it cash and you take the money off the fan. I challenge you to do that. Don't
What,
put it on
in the moment?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
okay,
Don't put
thanks
it on the
very much,
label.
mate. I don't take
put it on the
checks, cash only.
Don't put it on the company. Don't put the responsibility on someone
Jamie,
else.
can we get the Apple Pay over here, please, mate? I've got a fan who wants to shake my hand and get an autograph.
Right?
It's fucking gross.
It's absolutely fucking gross that you might... Now, young people being convinced by adults that want to make more money and go, oh yeah, sure. I'm not judging them. I'm saying, trust me, do a paid meet and greet where it's 20 quid a meet and greet, and every single fan, before they touch you, go, let me see that 20. And you'll do it for 2 minutes, and you'll never fucking do it again, because you'll realise that it's disgraceful.
Yeah.
And all that lot, that Jared Leto crowd who promote all that, it's a fucking abomination.
Greatest rapper of all time.
Lil Wayne.